Welcome to the Canadian Slovenian Chamber of Commerce presenting CSCC Business Insights, Episode 3, Humanizing Technology, AI and Robotics, with guest speakers, Mr. Shattuck, CEO, McMaster Innovation Center, Hamilton, Canada, and Dr. Maša, head of DDTlabs, Public Cultural Institute Delovski Dom, Trbovlje, Slovenia. The application of AI and robotics is on the rise and brings innovative solutions to healthcare, manufacturing, and far beyond what most of us can even imagine. I'm Sonia Rosenworth, CSCC's Executive Director, and with me today is Simon Pribac, our International Business Development Officer, who joins us from Slovenia to host today's event. Welcome, Simon.
Hi, Sonia, and welcome everyone to today's event. We're really happy that you all attended, and we are really happy that we are joined with two amazing people, Maša and Ty, and of course, all of you. So the program will begin with an introduction to McMaster Innovation Park's mission to promote innovation and the application of technology by Mr. Shattuck. And then we will have Dr. Maša Jazbec, head of DDTlab, treat us to her astounding work in artificial intelligence and robotics. At the end, we'll have a Q&A session where you're all invited to participate, and we'll be really happy to hear your questions, or either you tell them in here or you post them on chat, one or the other. If you post them on chat, then I will read them for you, and you're more than welcome to just state them yourself here. So at the end, we'll conclude our event with Mr. John Doma, the president of the Canadian Slovenian Chamber of Commerce. So if we go to the next slide, Sonia, we have our disclaimer. I don't want to go through it. It's kind of lengthy. It has to be there. It's going to be posted on our YouTube. So please, if you need, take time and read it. But we're not going to go through it right now.
Thank you, Simon. McMaster Innovation Park in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada's mission is to help companies grow. MIP supports startups, businesses, research, and offers collaborative space to transform ideas from vision to commercial reality. MIP acts as a bridge between academia and industry. They support researchers with commercial aspirations and enable students to develop their ideas in their incubator and accelerator programs, while also connecting industry with the technical prowess of McMaster University and other academic institutions. MIP is an integral part of Hamilton's innovation ecosystem, where everyone can find a multiplicity of resources to help begin their journey. We're honored today to have Mr. Shattuck, CEO of McMaster Innovation Park, Canada's premier research park, as our speaker today. Ty has held a series of senior leadership roles with a focus on technology, commercialization, and investment in the digital, aerospace, defense, high-tech sectors, and venture capital industries. As a professional engineer, former adjunct professor at Ontario College of Art and Design University, past chair of Mohawk College's Board of Governors, and a former RCAF officer, Ty is well known within the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area for his business acumen and community leadership. In 2010, he was awarded Engineer of the Year from the Ontario Society for Professional Engineers. In 2011, as CEO of PV Labs, he led the company towards being named one of Canada's top 200 fastest growing companies by Profit magazine. And in 2012, they received an Academy Award under his leadership. Today, Ty will share how he leverages his ability to envision the potential of new ideas, along with a strong bias for pragmatism to help inventors, researchers, entrepreneurs, and high technology organizations transform their innovative ideas into a profitable business reality. Welcome, Mr. Shattuck.
Tanya, thank you so much for inviting me to speak with you today. You, Simon, and everybody that's joined us. The honor is really mine, and I've been looking forward to this discussion, and certainly seeing Maša's technology is something that looked extremely inspiring. So I can't wait to learn about it. So again, thank you for inviting me today. What I thought I would do this afternoon is take a few moments. I've got a short presentation. I promise not to do death by PowerPoint. I'm going to go over a little bit about McMaster Innovation Park, what we do, what our mission is. So it gives you a sense of what the organization is all about. I thought I'd then morph into discussing where the ecosystem is. So as an innovation park, as a research park, we talk about innovation ecosystems all the time. And part of that is expanding and enhancing an innovation ecosystem. So I'd like to give you a sense of what our innovation ecosystem is like, which then will lead to, naturally, how do we potentially connect it with yours and other innovation ecosystems throughout the region and through the world. And I'll highlight some of the partnerships so that we can talk about how we partnered with other locations as well. And that'll be the presentation. And I'll try to keep it as interesting and short as possible, because I'm cognizant that I think everybody's had lots of virtual meetings over the last couple of years. So let me preface it by saying, before I move into that, I really hope that we have the opportunity to meet in person sometime soon. So with that said, I'm just going to share my screen just very quickly. And I'm just going to make sure that, can everybody see the screen at this point? I'm going to go, I haven't heard anybody say no, so I'm going to assume that you can. So what I'd like to do in starting the presentation is just talk about what is MIP, what is our mission, why do we exist? So on a very formal basis, our mission is to be a bridge between industry and academia. And you'll note we're a research park here. We're owned by McMaster University, which is in Hamilton, Ontario, which is about 45 kilometers, 50 kilometers outside of Toronto, west of Toronto. It's a very research-intensive university. And the idea of the park is to be a bridge. The notion is there's great minds, there's great research in the universities. How do we bring this to life? And so our formal mission is to be a bridge between McMaster University and the community to foster the innovator's journey. Now, sometimes that means a startup, sometimes that means licensed technologies, and it could mean a number of ways to bring ideas to life. But notionally, the idea is within academia, there's ideas, and within industries, there are problems. And our real mission is to try to bridge those two things. Now, that's the formal definition of that. What I will tell you, after being here at MIP for about 3 years, the most common question I get is, I still don't really understand, Ty, what you guys actually do at a research park, at an innovation park. So if you may, and if you humor me, I'd like to move away from the formal definition to something that hopefully is a little more meaningful. And I'm going to explain what we do through a Zen riddle. And I'm supposed to be an innovation guy, so I get to do things unusual. So this is the unusual part. So I'm sure you've all heard that Zen riddle that says, if a tree fell in the forest, but there was nobody there to hear it, did it really make a noise? And so we have a modern take on that that says, if a researcher made a brilliant discovery, an absolutely brilliant discovery, but if nobody ever heard of that idea, if that idea never went towards saving a child's life, towards feeding a village, towards creating a brighter world, is that brilliant discovery really a good idea? And if we unpack that riddle, it really tells us what we do versus what the university does. The university is in the business of research and education. Their job is to create brilliant minds that came up for brilliant discoveries. Despite being a research park, MIP, McMaster Innovation Park, we're not in the business of fundamental research. Our job, like the riddle would suggest, is when a tree falls in the forest or when a researcher makes a brilliant discovery, our job is to provide all of the resources, all of the support mechanisms, the place, the facilities, whatever you can imagine, to go from brilliant discovery to an impactful reality. Sometimes that means giving them facilities. Sometimes that means providing capital. Sometimes that means giving them some coaching. It's whatever it takes. And that group of things that we provide is what we refer to as the innovation ecosystem. All of those players, stakeholders out there that are working together to move ideas from concept to reality. And so that's what we really do. And this video will give a little bit of an overview of MIP.
You know, McMaster University is the most research-intensive university in the country. The vision of the park was and continues to be a bridge between fundamental research and industry. So our job is to provide all the necessary support mechanisms to go from a really outstanding discovery to an outstanding industry impact.
So there's a partnership between the private sector, academia, and government.
We use the phrase an innovation ecosystem. It's where all those companies that have brilliant ideas trying to advance into industry are colliding with all of the support mechanisms necessary to move forward. And the core of the innovation ecosystem is those bright people with these bright ideas that we're bringing to life.
So we basically make a software that assists surgeons with minimizing risk during minimally invasive surgeries.
We build high-resolution, low-cost color sensors that make it easy for interior designers, paint contractors to find the color of paint for renovations.
Curator is a company that helps people better manage their assets, and we work with thousands of universities and research institutions around the world.
We built some software that helps reduce the amount of time that employees spend looking for information with the company. It's artificial intelligence, but for businesses.
It's a beauty platform that connects independent beauty professionals with beauty clients.
So we have this mixture of students, advanced researchers, and industry all in the same place.
BEAM is a fantastic facility that's aimed at translating things from an academic lab to actually demonstrating that it works in a patient, to be able to translate it to a company who could then commercialize it.
The goal of the center is to focus on making sure that the people who are aging stay functional as long as possible.
We have one of the largest, and I believe the best program in academia in North America in transportation electrification.
We're now helping deliver on the clean tech and clean energy mandate. There's new programs for research and development that will allow us to develop materials that are required for those clean technologies.
Our mission is to be a research park, an innovation park where ideas come to life. And that only happens when people interact. And that's what community is about. You give them the opportunity to interact and ultimately collaborate.
I think being a solo entrepreneur, it's very important to have a strong support system, and this is where I found it.
Our companies are going to find or identify some really big problems that need to be solved, and they're going to solve those problems for places around the world.
This is critical to the innovation agenda, not only for McMaster, but for Ontario and for Canada.
So hopefully that gives you a sense of the kind of really interesting people that we work with here at MIT. And so I used the word innovation ecosystem in the introduction and again in the presentation. And so I want to just highlight a little bit about that. So this is one way of showing an innovation ecosystem. What I want to highlight is a couple of things here. So if you look on the left, that's where universities play. That's in the ideation stage, what we refer to as the innovator development phase, where they're coming up with the good ideas. But then ideas get weeded down and they turn into startups and scale-ups, and they ultimately get funded and supported at different stages. If you look at the very bottom, as it says the MIP zone, again, we're not involved in the fundamental research. That's really the role of the university. We get involved once it becomes commercially interesting, and that's really where we pay attention to. Now, the second thing I'd like to draw attention to within our ecosystem is that I would like you to think of it. It's a good ecosystem, but it's still a work in progress. what we find is that we in this region, and Canada, I would argue as a whole, are really good at research, and we're pretty good at startups. But where we really fall down is going from startups to scale-ups. Canada has not historically been good at being able to turn these startups into large companies. Often they exit and they go to the US. And so the particular focus at MIT right now in development of the ecosystem is not simply on the research or on the startup, but on the scale-up. That's a major focus of how do we go from little companies to scalable, high growth companies that are employing lots of people. That's the current area of focus. And we're following what's known as a maturity model that's put together by Wexford Science and Technology. And when I say these are just innovation districts models, but I find this pretty compelling, there's a maturity model that organizations or districts follow. And I would say we're in a knowledge community 2.0. So we have facilities, we have some amenities, but we're really trying to move to 3.0 and 4.0. So it's a much more holistic and fulsome ecosystem. And that's really what we're focused on now. And frankly, that's one of the reasons that meetings like this are really good, because we're connecting with other innovation districts throughout the world and looking for opportunities for collaboration. Now, along the way, there's a physical component to it. So if you know about innovation ecosystems, you know that they have to have a certain critical mass. And what I would say is MIT is still relatively small. We have about 1,000 people that come to the park every day to go to work, and we have about 700,000 square feet under management. But that's really not enough, and so we've embarked upon a major development to go from 700,000 square feet to 3.5 million square feet. We want to go from having 1,000 people working here a day to about 5,000 people working here today. And we want to shift from doing research and startup to moving down the continuum. In particular for life sciences, we're building a biomanufacturing capability. So one of the things that's pretty unique about Canada, again, we do really well on the research, but we rely heavily on other nations, primarily the United States, Asia, and Europe, to do the biomanufacturing. And this became very relevant during the COVID crisis, where a lot of the research for the vaccines was done here, but it was put to practice or productized in the US. And so we're trying to change that, and we're building up a biomanufacturing campus here at the park. And that's about half of the 3.5 million square feet. So if you came to visit us about 5 years from now, you'll see that we're much more expanded. Again, 3.5 million square feet. And that's the theme. And what we're really trying to do is not just build a bunch of buildings, but really add the number of people, add the number of companies, and really move down the innovation ecosystem from doing startups to doing scale-ups. That's the major theme of it. A couple of buildings that we're really excited about is Omnio Bio. This is a cell and gene therapy biomanufacturing company. It'll be the largest of its kind in Canada. We're really excited to be the home of that. We've been selected for that. And we're building over 400,000 square feet just for cell and gene therapy biomanufacturing. Another building that we're super excited about is Global Nexus. This is actually a McMaster University facility. It's over 300,000 square feet. It's a cross-faculty research facility focused on pandemic preparedness and other biological threats. Again, so that we're more prepared for the kind of emergencies that we've all just lived through. And in another building yet is we acquired what's known as 44 Frid. It's an old newspaper building here in Hamilton. And it's about 250,000 square feet. And that's mixed life science buildings. So these are for companies that have graduated from an incubator, but aren't quite ready to go build their own dedicated facility. So we're providing them somewhere between 5,000 and sometimes 40,000 square feet of facilities. All told, again, we moved from 700,000 square feet to 3.5 million square feet. And the total bill to do this is about $1.8 billion Canadian. So that's really where our focus is developing that. We think this is really important for the region. The 1.7, which is escalated to 1.8, it's going to create a whole bunch of jobs in the construction industry. But after that, it's going to create almost another 4,000 jobs and diverse jobs within the life science industry. And we're also building residential into it. And so that's a major focus for us, is the development of the park. And so that's what Jonathan, who's from MIT on this, spend a bunch of time is working through these things. So that kind of gives you a sense of our growth. Now, why is this important, and why are partnerships important? And I think this would resonate with the audience. So what I'm trying to show here is that Canada is a very geographically large company, but it is a very small population. In fact, there's more people in the state of California than there are in all of Canada. And so historically, innovation districts have been built upon the concept of what's called spatial closeness. Do you have the right people? Well, how do you get all these people to collaborate and collide and do those things if we're separated all about? And so a major emphasis in our strategy moving forward is to make geographic distance less relevant. How do you collaborate over distance? Now that, in our case, could be across the country, but it could also be across the Atlantic Ocean or across the Pacific Ocean, because we're looking for like-minded people, and we believe that collaboration is the key to advancing ideas from research to impactful reality. And so the kind of discussions that we're having with you today are exactly the kind of partnerships that we're trying to find, because we think that you can combine innovation districts across geography. And so why do you want to have a partnership? What are you trying to do? And so the whole theory of innovation is based on the notion of a collision. And a collision is just a common, a new word for meetings. So when you meet somebody and you potentially start to collaborate. And so one could argue that we're colliding right now. So people that didn't know each other this morning are now in a discussion. But what I would say is not all collisions are valuable. And so the value of a collision is really a function of two things. How many people are out there? So how many people can you collide with? And what is the quality of those collisions is about the diversity of it. And so quantity is more people. So if you meet more people, the likelihood that you're going to meet and collaborate with somebody increases. But you don't want to simply meet people that are exactly like you. You want to meet somebody that's complementary to you. So you want to combine, when an engineer meets with a marketing person, which meets with an investment person, that's when you have a quality collision, because you start to see more diversity in the teams, and it's more likely those ideas are going to come to life. And so MIP, through its partnerships, tries to do two things. Are we meeting more people? That's the quantity component. And are we meeting more diverse people and organizations, so that it's more likelihood that you're going to find something complementary? And so these kind of meetings today are exactly what we're trying to do, and that creates value. So that's a little bit of theory, but that's what innovation districts work. So now I'd like to give you an example of a partnership that we have and are expanding. Oh, so I went to the.
This represents a fairly harsh environment. Any piece of equipment that's exposed to it over a long period of time would require maintenance.
So every time we have to do a maintenance on the outside of the space station, that means a crew member has to suit up and go outside. That introduces that crew member to risk and puts that person in harm's way. The other issue is that now they're spending the time doing the maintenance work, and they're not doing the science, which is really what their purpose is. So with the maintenance challenges that we were going to have with the International Space Station, what we found ourselves was Canada being in the position to provide a solution to that problem, and Dexter was going to be that solution.
Dexter is a two-armed robotic manipulator system capable of performing fine motion tasks to replace what an astronaut would need to do on the exterior part of the space station.
Dexter is essentially a handyman. It operates on the outside of the International Space Station. It allows us to do maintenance operations. One of the advantages with Dexter is that we're able to control it from the ground.
And so the ground crew could actually operate these robotic systems and free the astronaut up from that task as well.
So now that Dexter is online on the space station and operating on a regular basis, what we've got is we've got a crew who's spending more time doing science. And this is important because this was really the whole idea of building the International Space Station, was to be able to do science in low Earth orbit.
Unfortunately, only about 40% of women should be getting annual MRI as part of their screening undergo MR screening. Part of the reason why women were not undertaking MRI screening was because of lack of access to the best radiologists locally.
Some women have to drive very long distance, like 7 or 8 hours of car in snowstorm during the winter, sometimes risking their lives just to get their MR-guided breast biopsies.
When we started to do the research with Canadian Space Agency and NASA on the whole remote telesurgery, we started to get involved with MDA. MDA is a Canadian company which has been involved in manufacture of all the robotic systems which is currently used on the space station.
So we developed a system called IGAR, which stands for Image Guided Automated Robot.
IGAR is a tele-operated robot that performs breast biopsies under MRI guidance.
One of the capabilities of IGAR is to be controlled by radiologists from any distance. And that allows basic A radiologists to supervise MR breast biopsy on a patient who may be hundreds of kilometers or thousands of kilometers away from them. It means that the patient can undergo their breast biopsy in their own local hospital without having the need to travel to another city or another hospital to get access to the expertise.
And the results are very, very encouraging. So we've demonstrated that the IGAR is safe, extremely accurate as a human.
And this will allow us to hopefully increase the number of people undergoing screening close to 100% where it should be. So IGAR is built on many of the know-how which was developed for the space program, as well as the software which is also used to control the robotics on the space station.
We can actually see some of these technologies we worked with for a long time becoming available. We have a lot of insight on how to apply them, not just in medicine, but in a number of other fields, which is what we're doing. So without the space station, would any of that have happened? No, not really. Not in that way, anyway.
So back to, that's the end of the presentation. So hopefully that gives you an example of a real life partnership. And I said we're trying to make distance not matter so much. So in this case, we're not just partnering across an ocean, we're partnering in space, if you will. And I thought that was a good example because it included robotics and included the notion of partnerships. So that's a little bit about MIT, and I'm now available for any questions, whether it's now or later. So back to you, Sonia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shattuck. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions about MIP, and we'll be sure to address them at the end of the presentation, so at the end of our event. Also, we'll share MIP's website for more information to everyone present, and also to all our members. So what do we have next? Next we have, well, I'm going to tell you first something about DDTlab. DDTlab Research Laboratory works in the fields of cybernetics, virtualization, brain-computer interface systems, and robotics, and facilitates regional, national, and international connectivity under the premise of humanization of technology. And DDTlab is also part of ROOC network, which is a network of research art science centers. And it concludes of 3 labs, one in Koper, one in Trbovlje, and one in Maribor, all 3 of them in Slovenia. And each one of them is focusing on a different field. The lab in Koper, HEKA lab, is focusing on biomaterials research, on underwater sound, and on fiber optics. The lab in Trbovlje, which we'll hear more of today through our guest, is focusing, as we said, on brain-machine interface systems, virtualization, cybernetics, and robotics. And the lab in Maribor, Kibla2 lab, is focusing on virtual reality and animation. So In a little more than 2 years of operation of DDTlab, DDTlab has created numerous interdisciplinary projects, 5 of which received innovation awards and are awarded every year by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia. The BCI Painter project received a Golden Innovation Award, as well as a special national award of the Innovation Challenge of Collaboration of Cultural and Creativity Industries in the Traditional Economy. DDTlab is effectively connecting art and culture with education, economy, and science, especially in the field of robotics. Maša Jazbec, who is with us today, she's the head of DDTlabs. Maša is an intermedia artist, curator, and academic researcher. Maša holds a PhD in human informatics, attained at the University of Tsukba. Maša, am I saying this right? The name of the Japanese university. And it was an empowerment informatics program, and a master's in interactive art achieved at interface culture program at the University of Arts and Design in Linz, Austria. Dr. Maša Jazbec is engaged and committed to the vision and execution of the Trbovlje New Media Setting project in Slovenia, and organizes projects and events integrating science, art, technology, and society at the International New Media Culture Speculum Atrium Festival. She has a visiting researcher at the Ishiguro Laboratory at ATR Kyoto in Japan. Her projects exhibited as artworks have always shown her understanding of new media as a research artistic practice, stemming from artistic and scientific thought linked to the current situation in contemporary society. Her latest research interests are mostly focused on social robotics and android science. Dr. Jazbec presented her research at the conferences such as Computer-Human Interaction in 2016, Human-Robot Interaction in 2017, ICEA in 2017, and System Man and Cybernetics, IEEE, in 2017. In 2018, she was in the pre-art jury for interactive art and interactive art plus category at Ars Electronica. Ars Electronica is one of the biggest European intermedia arts festivals. It's located in Linz, Austria. Now it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Maša Jazbec, head of DDTlab Research Laboratory in Trbovlje in Slovenia. Welcome, Maša.
Thank you. Thank you for a very nice introduction, and thank you for the invitation to this great event. And really, thank you, Tai, for your presentation. It was very fascinating, very inspiring. So I will search for more information about the McMaster. Okay, now I will share my screen. Okay. Okay, I will present the projects that we are developing in our DDTlab under the premise of humanization of technology, and I will talk mostly about our robotics projects. And Simon already did an introduction of me, so I will just like briefly to say, talk about my story, how I went into the robotics, because I'm an artist, and since I know since little kid, I was like, I really liked, I was very interested in the robotics. It started, of course, from the science fiction movies like Blade Runner, Alien. And when I was studying my master at interface culture in Linz, I was there at Ars Electronica Festival, and there I saw the amazing android robots from Professor Ishiguro. I was really impressed. And when I completed my master, I wanted to join his laboratory, or to do the research there, to be closer to that robots, to do more research about it. And they told me there that they cannot accept artists, that they don't have like the program for art because it's pure engineering and pure science. So then I talked with my master advisor at Krista Sommerer, and she said, why don't you try PhD then? So together we searched for the PhD program for me, and we found a really nice program that that was good for me. And through that program, then I was able to join as well Professor Ishiguro laboratory, and that's how the doors to science laboratories opened to me. So that I had really great opportunities to do my own research, my own experiments with robots. Because before in the past, I was very active in Slovenia, in Trbovlje, organizing events related to robotics. For example, at the festival that I was curating, Speculum Artium, we hosted like many robotics projects like Asimo from Honda Robotics. It was the first time that it was in Slovenia. And as well the Ishiguro robotics projects and like Stellark and many, many more. And I was then very happy that we got the grant from the Ministry of Culture, the European grant, so that we were able to establish a platform, a DDTlab, a platform for research art and for science and technology. And we also we are also collaborating with companies. So we started with the lab in October 2019. We moved to the empty places in the Catapult. Catapult is it's a tech incubator in Trbovlje. It was built by the Devesoft company, and the Devesoft company is the company which is one of the best in development of measurement devices. They work also for NASA, and so the environment is really nice. And I think that we create artists, people who are more like creative are there, and I think it's a really nice collaboration. We collaborate, and together we really did many very amazing projects. So we established like a laboratory for development application with brain-computer interface. Here we are collaborating with the company GTech from Austria, and they are developing the brain-computer interfaces, but mostly for rehabilitation and for medicine. And we also have a laboratory for creative robotics, where we are presenting and developing robotic projects in a different way. We call it like creative robotics. And in this way, we are presenting like the robotic technologies to the broader audience. And we have also a laboratory for development of virtual reality and augmented reality projects. So how it started, how I got interested in brain-computer interfaces. This was one experiment at the ATR laboratory in Kyoto, at Ishiguro laboratory, where we were experimenting like connecting brain-computer interface with the robot. So here you can see that this on the right side is a robot. Maybe you don't know. It's an Android robot. And here I am thinking of moving the head, and these signals that my brain signals that the device captures are in real time sent to the robot. So we did a lot of projects like that. There are a lot of research, because one part of the Android science is as well the rehabilitation, because these robots can be used also for the people, you know, with disabilities, that they cannot use their own body. They could use like the body of the Android, or just the robot arm, for example. Because when I was there, they were doing also very interesting experiment, how to move with your brain waves the third arm. For example, in this experiment, you are typing, and while typing, you got thirsty, you could call your third arm, the robotic arm, to give you a drink. This works. So it's very fascinating because even while multitasking, doing something else with your arms, you can call the third arm. You can also read research papers about it. They published it. And that's how I got very interested in the brain-computer interfaces. So after when I finished my PhD in Japan, I went to Austria to interface culture at the University of Linz, where I was teaching. I was a guest professor, and there I already connected with the GTEC company, which is there. And with my students, we did like workshops, you know, we learn about the brain-computer technologies, how it works. And this idea then I brought to Trbovlje, to Slovenia, where we organized in 2019 the first brain-computer hackathon in collaboration with GTEC. And I was really amazed how many people got interested, because Trbovlje is a small industrial town. So, and we did this hackathon there. I was not sure, you know, how many participants it will come, but it was 40 people, 40 participants, which is a lot. And then I saw that there is interest in Slovenia or in our community, you know, about brain-computer interface devices, because, you know, one of our mission in our lab is also democratization of science and technological advancements, because if such technology, if such science knowledge is out there, I think we all should have the opportunity to learn about it, to know about it. Especially we are focused to work on with youth, with kids, because we want them, you know, to know that these things exist. And that's how we are also kind of creating like innovators, because in our lab, students can also innovate, you know. So in our lab, we have several these brain-computer interfaces, hybrid plug. They are very easy to set up and very stable. And with these devices, we are actually developing our own applications. This is shortly just the setup. It has 8 electrodes. The way how it captures signals is P300 technology, and it takes like 5 minutes to set up with the calibration, putting the gel and everything. And after five minutes, you are able to operate stuff, to move stuff with your brain waves only, with the power of your brains. We tested also with the GTEC also more sophisticated, more how to say BCI systems with more electrodes. But we found that for us it's maybe too complex and too complicated to set up, because it takes much longer, and we mostly demonstrate our projects also using in the art installations in public spaces, and we need something that it's maybe faster to set up. So then we still decided that we are not going to use these ones, you know, and we are still staying with the hybrid one, with the unicorns. So this is just briefly how it works. The brain computers that we are brain computer interfaces that we are using, it still works with the visual stimulus. So everything starts with a speller. This is kind of a keyboard. Here you can see letters, and we do like a 5-minute calibration so that we kind of learn our brains where these symbols are, and then we can type, we can write with our just with the power of our brains, or we can modify this keyboard, connect it with some other machines or other interfaces, and then we can manipulate other machines or other interfaces with the brain, with the power of our brain. So this is the first project that we developed. Is a brain computer painter, and this was developed together with high school students. because they come to our lab and we do projects together, and they are learning about programming and about creativity and also about new technologies. And they have a lot of technical knowledge, and it's really nice that we can present them these new technologies and they can do something with it. And this was like a really wonderful project where you can paint with your thoughts on the digital canvas, and then you can save the image that you did and you can take it, you can send it to your email and print it out. And we demonstrated this project many events. For example, also on the events like big conferences. This was the conference on the future of industry and internalization. We opened the conference. So there on the stage, you can see a member of our laboratory, how he's painting with brainwaves on this big screen behind it. Okay, and now I will just present the projects that we are developing with robots. In our laboratory, we have two robots. We have a collaboration with the company Yaskawa. So we have one of their robots, and we have a small humanoid robot now. And of course, we connected both of these robots as well with brain-computer interfaces. So we kind of are developing neurorobotics project applications. Here you can see how you can connect with the humanoid robot Eva. It's now, but we called her Eva. For this, we modified the keyboard. Here you can see we put here like the robotic gestures, which you choose with your brainwaves, with your thoughts, and the one you choose, the robot do this action. Here you can as well see a short video how it looks. This is in our laboratory. And then we do like workshops. This workshop is the university in Linz with the master students, where we go there for a week and we have like the creative robotics workshops there, so the students can learn about human-robot interaction in a more creative way. In these workshops, they learn about robotics technologies, about the software of robotics, also about the AI in robotics, and also about the brain-computer interfaces, because they can develop, we teach them how to develop their own application for human-robot interaction with the BCI devices, with the brainwaves. And we do these workshops as well in Terbolia, in our lab. Here you can see like this were like the summer the holiday workshops. So like children came to our lab and they were developing their own keyboards, their own applications with the brain-computer interface and the robot. Here, for example, they were making a keyboard with the notes do, re, mi. And when you choose one of these signs, then the robot sings this note. I think it's a very interesting learning tool for kids or anyone, to learn about the robotics. And of course, we into our laboratory, there are coming also people with disabilities, because these projects we called as well like creative rehabilitation. We also are collaborating with the Medicine Institute, with the neuroscientist, Dr. Blažko Ritnik. So sometimes we go with him to his patients so that they can as well try out our applications. And this is another robot that we have, the industrial arm from Yaskawa. We call it Yaski, and he is an artist. So he's not doing what he was supposed to do, you know, like some repetitive industrial tasks, but he's an artist. So he's like painting and drawing and do many interesting things. And of course, also this robot, you can, with this robot, you can paint with your brainwaves. So we have like many workshops, demonstrations also with this robot. Okay, and as well, yeah, also this application is very interesting for the people with disabilities, for the rehabilitation. There is also a brief video. So the setup of the device, it's like I said, it's very quick, very fast. Takes like just a few minutes. We put all the electrodes. We have to put a little bit of gel so that the electrodes can get a strong brain signal. You know, we put some gel to get it wet because the electrode needs to get the signal through your hair, your skull, and we want to give a perfect condition, so that's why we put also some gel. And here is like the keyboard that we designed, and you can see which sign symbol the participant chooses with the brains, then the robot paints that. And then the users can also take the painting to their home. And some of the paintings we have also here in our the laboratory, the robot exhibition, and all these paintings were made with the help of the brainwaves. So we are collaborating with a lot with students, universities, scientists, companies, engineers, artists, because we have also like artist residencies, so that artists can come to our lab and then can work with robots, and they can develop application on the small robot, like here you can see, and then we go to Yaskawa, and there at the Yaskawa company, they can work also on the big robots, because Yaskawa is our partner and it's supporting us. For example, if we have some big exhibition, they borrow us the big robot for the exhibitions, for the exhibition setups. And here we did like experiment or research in the elderly home with the university students for her master program. We were doing like how the robot can change the dynamics of storytelling in the field of storytelling in the retirement home, and then we were focusing on the people with dementia and with the healthy people. So we had like several visits, analyses, and so this is kind of a collaboration with universities that we do. Because students at the university are also very grateful that they can collaborate with us, because in Slovenia, not many universities, especially more for social science, they don't have such a technology, you know, it's not reachable for them. So then we are here to support them. And can you explain some more about robotics art project? Of course, you also, when you do research on experiment, you also must have fun. So this is what Eva is doing for us. So we do also like theater, puppet show with robot Eva. Here is like with the marionette show. And you should see the children when they came to see this show, because it was a surprise to them, because all of a sudden Eva, little robot, came, you know, behind the curtains on the stage, and it was really fascinating, and it's also very interesting from this point of view, you know, like the this old cultural technique of marionette dolls, and then this new technology robot, and here it was really nicely working in the harmony. And this is another show. We also demonstrate robotic technologies to the we go to the centers where people with disabilities are living, because we also want that they get to experience, that they can learn as well about such technologies. So this is why we call it like humanization of technology, and like science, technology, and art for everyone. We do as well projects with library. So we have like sessions where the library workers are reading stories together with Robot Eva. That's how we want to motivate children more to read, you know. So we are also using a robot to do that. And like many shows, this one is a very famous Slovenian actor and comedian. So Eva did some performances with him. And our robot Eva is also like a moderator for conferences. This was last year, it was an international conference on the future of technologies, and here she is she was in tandem with Igor Ebergand. He's a very well recognized reporter in Slovenia. I mean, Eva did a lot of conference moderation works already. And here is another interesting project that we are developing with robots. It's called AI Robot Comics. So here is like an installation. You go beside Eva, you ask her a question, and then the Eva AI, her bot, is answering. We don't know what the answer gonna be. Sometimes it can be a bit too sarcastic, and then you can see the dialogue with the participant and the robot. It's like that, like in the comic. So then we have like the computer system, the algorithms change this image into the drawing, so that, and then the drawing can be printed out or the robot can draw. And so that this is how we are creating the AI comics in the harmonization with human, robot, and AI. For example, for this exhibition, Speculum Artium, you can see that the Yaskawa supported us with the bigger robot. And some of these comics pages we are also then printed out, and we put it in the frame. And just the text about it. And some answers are really sarcastic and interesting. So when visitors came to our lab, they are really spending some time to talk with the robot, because they're so curious what kind of answers will they get. So we are collecting all these pages or dialogues, and then at the end we will make a book, you know. So it's going to be a book, a comic book made with a robot, human, and AI. So here you can see how the robot draws that. And then we have as well application where there is a camera. That camera takes your picture, the computer changes the picture into the drawing, and then the robot draws that. And so here you can see. This was developed together with an artists, Mar and Varvara, who are doing like the artist residency in our lab. They were very happy to have the opportunity to learn to work with the robot. So we did like several very interesting projects, and also with our lab collaborator Jan Rajšek. He was actually a student who did like a praxa in our laboratory and really got into the robotics. So he actually then graduated on the topic of combining robotic Yaskawa arm with brain-computer interface. So I'm very happy that also, you know, students are finishing their diploma in our laboratory, and now he's our collaborator. So whenever we are presenting robots, he's there with us. And then, of course, this is again our YASKI exhibition in our lab. We have like the robotic art exhibition from YASKI. Some more images, yeah, from the during COVID, because we are also teaching a course in our technical university. It's called New Media Creation. And during COVID, I could not go to school, or the students could not come to our lab. So we developed application so that they were able to teleoperate with our robot. So here on the left, you can see this image. It was like a real-time web screening, so they could see the robot. And then we designed this interface. We send them this link to this interface to their home, so they could connect from home. And when they click on any of these symbols, like these brush strokes, and put it here on this square, then the robot did this task. So they were actually from home were operating the robot. I mean, from home, they could paint together with the robot. Here was another project made with Varvara and Mar during their art residency. So here they did a bit a provocative project. So they put a gun on the robot, and the robot is face tracking you. So wherever you look, the robot looks there. Because they wanted also to be a bit critical about robotics, because I think we all should be also sometimes, we should also have this critical thought of technology advancements. And yeah, AI and robotics. So when we have these workshops or lectures or demonstrations of our robots, then we also teach audience or students, participants about AI, because we notice that people, they don't know exactly how AI works. What is it? Everyone is talking about it. So in our case, we show them, on the robot how it works. For example, face recognitions and all this, machine learning, everything we show them on practical way, so that they can experience and see it, how it works. And as well as, what is also important, how AI is in the case of robotics. The very important in the robotics is athletic intelligence. Because that the robot walks, that he puts one leg after another, for us, we take it for granted, but to do the robot that, it's very challenging. So, and this is what we call athletic intelligence. And then it's like the cognitive intelligence in the robotics, in the humanoid robotics. And like, as I already mentioned, of course, we must have fun while we are researching, experimenting with robotics technologies, because I know who in the audience or who you work with robots, you know that you must be very patient when you work with robots. And whenever we have these public demonstrations with robots, and especially when our robot Eva is on stage, moderating, and we are always like, please work. So thank you for your time. And if you have any questions, I'm open to answer.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jazbec. I'm so pleased that both you and Mr. Shattuck were here today to open up our eyes and teach us a little bit about AI and robotics and the many applications and the possibilities. AI and robotics is part of our world and part of our future. I will open up actually our gallery view here. We're at the Q&A portion of our presentation. So if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat or just put up your hand. And
David.
Okay, so.
Yeah, we got David wanting to ask a question.
Yes, David, unmute yourself.
Yes, hello everybody. Hello, Maša.
your presentation was really, really fantastic. And I'm really happy to hear that in Slovenia it's happening something like this. So I'm really happy to hear about and to see what's going on in Trbovlje. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Mr. Tai. Your presentation was really opening my eyes and my ears. As in Piran, as a part of, I'm presenting the municipality of Piran. It's a small Mediterranean town in Slovenia, neighboring Italy and Austria. And we are starting up a project with investitions and welcoming investors as to build up and start up a new hub, a new technology innovation center, which will be mainly focusing on architecture, tourism. Of course, I think from today, I've read some connections, as you were mentioning earlier, like the collisions. So the collisions must happen. And I think every project and every program that we are thinking about actually somehow is connected with the stories and with the programs that you were exposing earlier. So I think architecture, tourism, arts, film, movie, also biology, this is the main programs that we want to focus on. They're interconnected and can develop a research hub which can grow up into discovering some new ways of consuming all those projects that I was mentioning about. So I'm really happy, and I'm thankful to Sonia and Simon to get us this opportunity to meet with you people, to see what's going on, what's happening. And of course, we are just starting up. We are just getting the ideas together. We want to communicate. We want to network, to build our network. And of course, we are welcoming you anytime to pay a visit, to visit us, so we can show you more what is our location and our destination, what can offer to you and offer like to networking and connecting us together. Thank you very much.
Well, David, thank you for those comments and the kind feedback on our presentation. So just let me say congratulations on embarking upon developing one of these innovation districts. They can be extremely impactful, not just for the ventures and the entrepreneurs and the innovators, but for the community in the region. It's a method of, frankly, economic development. So I'd be delighted to learn more and talk more and potentially visit. I would say across the globe, there are fellow innovation districts, some that are early stage and some that are much further advanced. And I can, we're but one of them. But one of the things that I can share with you is that they're all keen and eager to share their learnings and to look for collaborations. So I would say welcome to the club, and I look forward to collaborating.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, David, for the question, and thank you, Ty. We got another question coming in here on chat, and this is a question for Dr. Jazbec. And the question is, so how can this technology be used and or applied for rehabilitation? Maša, you're muted.
Yes. For example, these projects that we developed that we call like a creative rehabilitation robotics project, it can be used, for example, in the rehabilitation centers where we have people with different kind of injuries, neurological, and if their brains are okay, you know, but they can move physically, you know, and then they can use this our application. They can be creative, you know, they can create art, and I think this is really this can really motivate patients, you know. There have been like many studies worldwide done like that, and it's kind of proven that this kind of use of robots in rehabilitation can be very helpful. And as well, like we did these experiments in the elderly house with the dementia people, communicating with the robot, or that the robot was there. You know, they were very because it was about the storytelling. And when the robot was telling the story, they were really more motivated to listen to it. They kind of followed the story. They were able to focus, and they and this is also one proof how, you know, like the robots can be helpful in the rehabilitation. And there is also like many experiments and studies also happening using robots with kids with autism and stuff like that. So, and what we are also very happy that we inspired the youth, because when we introduced them this kind of using the robotics in the rehabilitation, some of the students that they were in our lab, they actually got interested, and now they decided to study rehabilitation technologies.
Thank you so much, Maša. Thank you for the answer. And we got another question coming in from Samantha, and a comment. It says, all that was said was very interesting. So thank you to both speakers. I'm fascinated how fast the technology is developing, and there are many benefits. Yet at the same time, it makes me wonder what will happen to the human population. As we see, there are more and more people each year, according to Worldometer. There are almost 8 billion of registered people on the planet. AI and robots are becoming a part of our society, but what will happen to the people? So this is the question for both of you.
So I don't, Maša, do you want to go first, or I can take a look at it? So Samantha, let me firstly say, I think that's a really good question. I think it's a really difficult question to answer. I think it's a very philosophical kind of area. So here's what I would say. Firstly, I'm going to preface it by saying no one can predict the future, it's certainly including me. But what I would say is AI, it conjures up the kind of science fiction and fears and stuff that you see in films. But what I want you to think about it, it's a tool. It's just a tool. And tools are amoral, which means you can use them for good and you can use them for bad. So I can use a hammer to build something, and I can also use a hammer to tear something down. And it's not about the tool, it's about how people use those tools. Now, it's a very powerful tool, but it is, at the end of the day, it's a tool. And as impressive as it is, it's not nearly as impressive as the human mind. I think as you explore AI at a more technical level, what you see is these technologies are very good at going very deep in a very narrow area. But they're very poor at what humans are good at, which is having discussions across platforms. For example, an AI or machine learning engine would be very good at, far better than a human being, at taking a whole bunch of numbers and crunching them and looking for relationships. But an AI engine would be completely incapable of asking the question that you just asked, which is, could AI impact society? It's a tool, it's very focused. And so if you think of it as a tool, and number two is you think of it as a limited tool, just like every other tool that's ever been invented. I think the real question is not what will AI do to people, but rather what will people do with AI? Where will they be able to build and expand? And with any technological revolution, whether it's steam or electricity or the internet, I think we should have a little faith that humans will be able to build new and amazing things with it. And yes, they'll be able to do bad things with it. Humans have a tendency to do some bad stuff out there. But I think more than that, it's about how AI will use, how humans will use AI rather than will AI replace humans. Anyway, so that's but I'm forever an optimist, so that's my view.
Yes, I totally agree with Ty. Really nice explanation. I also think AI is just a tool, and yeah, I think we are putting too much hope into it. Maybe too much expectation to it. And it's just a tool, and it's on us how we are going to use it. And I think that we should talk more about AI and the robotics, because especially in Slovenia, I miss that these discussions are not, for example, in schools, the universities, or even, in high school already. And I think that's where fear comes out, because people don't know about it. I think they don't know so much how actually AI works. And they don't even know much about the robotics. And I think because of a lack of knowledge, then also can come out fear. And what we are trying to do in our lab is also to demonstrate like the AI and the robotics, how we can use it to empower people, in a good way to use it. And we are opening discussion about it. And that's why, in our lab, people can learn about robotic technologies in practice. They can see how it works, where it is already used, and such things. And I think we should talk, more about it.
Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Maša. By the way, you also answered another question that came in during your talk, and somebody asked, there is a fear of robots and AI replacing us. What is the best response to appease this fear? And you just answered that, both of you. So thank you for that. And Maša, you mentioned how AI is not discussed so much in schools, universities, high schools in Slovenia, but Maša is actually the one doing that. Maša, as far as I know, you are the one working with high school kids, especially in Trbovlje with the technical school, and working across universities. So maybe you should clone yourself down the road, or make an AI version of you to teach people about AI. I'm joking, but yeah, it's starts with someone like you, and then hopefully the knowledge will spread. Randy, you have questions, so please.
Yeah, hi everyone. Can you hear me? Great, yes.
Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Shattuck. I think your MIP program is amazing. I think you're doing a wonderful thing. My only question is that in one of your slides, you were talking about set up to scale up, right, for new companies. How do you keep those companies, I don't know if it's an MIP thing, from leaving the brain drain from Canada and keeping those companies in Canada and whatnot?
Well, so that is the big question, right? So first of all, I'm just Ty, okay? So let me say that is the challenge that we have. Let me say, as a Canadian, we have a problem. What happens is we invest in our universities and our hospitals and our research institutes. We create great discoveries. As a Canadian, we also, through our taxes, we invest in incubators and startups. And then what happens is those successful startups, using the intellectual property that we as taxpayers paid for, invested in, often get gobbled up by foreign investors. just when they're about to create real economic value. And that does two things. One, it means the jobs go somewhere else. It also means that the exit value or the money, the return on the investment, goes to somewhere else and invests back in their ecosystem. And so the problem that you just laid out is precisely the problem of how do we move beyond startups? And forgive the analogy, but startups are really cool, right? They're fun. You know, it's a sexy thing now to be an entrepreneur. But I want you to think of startups are kind of like the kindergarten of the business world. They might be fun, they might be sexy, but they don't actually accomplish a lot. They consume resources as opposed to create resources. That's why you invest in a startup. Nobody gets rich by being employed by a startup, right? And so there's a bunch of reasons why that happens. One of which is we have lack of facilities. So I'm at MIT, we're looking at biotech. Part of the challenge, there's literally nowhere for our life science companies to grow. And so what happens is that somebody invests 100 million in them and says, bring your new vaccine to market. And they have nowhere to go. So where do they go? They go where they have facilities. So part of the answer is to invest in facilities. That's one piece of it. Another piece of it has to do with leadership talent. When you go to a more advanced innovation ecosystem, say the Palo Alto or San Francisco or Copenhagen, you're on the third, fourth generation of entrepreneurs. And what happens is they start a company, they sell a company, they make money, and then they start their second company, and then their third company. And that does two things. That reinvests capital, but more than that, it brings leadership talent, right? Because these guys know what they're doing. We're really in Gen 1, right? And so what we want to do is keep our leaders here so that they create companies here. So that's the second piece that I would argue. And the third is capital. We need to put more capital into it. The largest VC in Canada is a federally funded venture capital group. That's a problem. That's a problem. We need Canadian investors, both on the equity and the debt side, to be investing in the Canadian ventures. And that's partly because there's risk aversion, but it's partly because of systemic and regulatory issues. So I would ask you, why do Canadian investors invest in mining, but they don't invest in Canadian biotech? Well, it has to do with a bunch of regulatory issues. And so what I would say, I don't believe that the government is the answer. I believe the private sector is the answer. But I think the government has to rethink some of the regulatory and structural issues that make it more compelling to invest in other countries or more compelling to invest in other sectors. I'll give you a very quick example. So the Canadian Pension Fund, one of the largest pension funds, around, they will not invest in a Canadian life science venture fund, but they do invest in US life science venture funds. So why are we taking Canadian dollars and investing in US ventures? It has to do with regulatory requirements around pension funds. They have certainly minimum placements. And so I think these are areas where the government, if they can think more about entrepreneurism, and this isn't about them writing checks, this is about them, frankly, reducing red tape, then I think you're going to see more Canadian dollars going into more Canadian funds, going into more Canadian companies. And I think that's another piece. So net, what I think is what we need is more capital, we need more legal, and we need a better business environment. I think there was a lead up that there's, this is not the opinion of the chamber. So here's what I would say. We don't have a particularly friendly business environment right now. And so you're incentivized to do business in other jurisdictions and in other sectors. And that's where we need to work on stuff. And so there's a bunch of us that are working on that, but I would say that. So unfortunately, there's not one silver bullet. There's a bunch of structural issues that we need to work on. So hopefully that wasn't too esoteric, but that's my answer.
Thank you for answering my question. Much appreciated. Thank you again.
Thank you, Todd. Thank you, Maša. Does anybody else have an additional question for our guests?
I have a question for Maša, if you don't mind. So if you think about the next generation of your technology, or the next generation of your technology, what breakthroughs or what enabling technologies do you think would be really helpful? Like, is it better brain sensing equipment? Is it more enhanced AI? Like, what would really accelerate your innovation further?
Yeah, that's hard to predict, but I think that we also have to think how we perceive these technologies, that it's also in our mind. Well, how also there is already so much technology available to us, but I think that we don't even use in 100% this technology. So I think it's also in our mind how we gonna use already this that we already had. I think that we are going too fast. Something new. We always want something new, and I think that we don't use. I think.
Oh, well, that's good. Well, I heard a stat that the average person only uses less than 10% of Microsoft Office capabilities.
Yeah.
So we shouldn't be shocked that we're not using the entirety of yours. So if I change the question, if there was one thing that could be done, or let me change it. If you had 3 wishes that would help you in your journey to advance your technology and where you're going, what would those 3 wishes be? And don't constrain yourself by where we are today, right?
I think I didn't hear everything at the end. I think you frozen.
If you had 3 wishes,
yes,
maybe you need capital, maybe you need, a business partner. If you had 3 wishes and Sonia was your fairy godmother and could grant you any wish that you could imagine, what would your 3 wishes be that would advance what you're doing?
Yes, I would really like to work more with robotics, because we know for us artists, who are more like creative people, this technology is still not available to us because robots are very expensive. So, and we are really eager, to explore more the possibilities of robotics, but unfortunately, this technology is not available to us. So that's why we insisted in our lab to get, because we got this funding and we were able to buy such machines. So, and with this, and you can see what everything we did with only 2 robots, of course. And if I could have a bigger grant, of course, I will invest into the robots and then develop creative rehabilitation projects with such robots, because we know that the technology advancement is not going to stop. And especially in the field that I'm most focused, it's robotics. This technology is still not available to so many people, to so many also students, researchers. And I think here.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you.
And it's also for us artists and maybe who are more creative people, it's very hard also to enter into these academic laboratories where the robots are developing. So like I said at the beginning of my presentation, I had to do a PhD to be able to enter to such laboratories because they don't have program for artists. So yeah.
That's a long, circuitous route to doing what you needed to do.
Yeah, but that was I was so passionate about it. I really wanted to learn, to explore, and so I went. And it was one of my best experiences in my life. I learned there also, like you said earlier, about humans, our human body, because they are developing android robots. These are copies of human body. And when I was there exploring, researching with these robots, I learned so much about my own body, that so many things in our body we take for granted. So I learned how special we as humans are in this connection with our mind and body. You know, robots are still far away from that, but it's a very nice platform, especially for me, was because I'm also very interested as an artist and as a researcher in human. And one of the platform, if you want to learn about humans, it's also start to learn about robotics, because you know, if you want to learn about human, you're trying to make a copy, and this is robotics, and this is a very good field to study human robotics.
Yeah, well, what I would say, and look, I don't mean to hog the discussion, I think your research is very inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most important question that I would have, and I was trying to get at it, is how can we help, right? Because there's lots of people that are keenly interested in helping people like you doing really interesting, inspiring things, right? So don't be afraid to reach out and tell us what kind of help we can provide.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ty, and thank you, Maša. This was amazing, really great, really mind-opening on so many levels, from both the business perspective, academic perspective, research perspective. So thank you very much. And if nobody else has a question for the end, last call for the questions. No. Oh yeah, we don't have a question, but we have a comment. This forum today has been very interesting. Thank you, Dr. Jazbec and Dr. Shattuck. So again, thank you, Ty, and thank you, Maša. And in closing right now, I would like to present Mr. John Doma, our Canadian-Slovenian Chamber of Commerce president in Burlington right now. John, please.
Yes, thank you, Simon, and thank you, Sonia, for getting this event off the ground and organizing it. And of course, a special thank you to Ty and Maša, and presenting their respective, specialties. I personally have known you, Ty, for well over 20 years, and I can tell everybody here, the Hamilton and McMaster Innovation Park couldn't have a better person showing leadership. Ty has been very innovative and brought, ideas, commercialize them at a very large scale. We'd certainly spend a lot more time in terms of, telling everybody of his accomplishments. So Ty, thank you for sharing McMaster's story. I think it's one we're very proud of here in the GTA area, and certainly something that Ty has brought to an incredible level through his passion and hard work. I mean, there's nothing easy, nothing comes about without hard work, and I know Ty definitely has shown that. Maša, with you, with DDTlab, I mean, just wonderful, taking something when you're very young and having the passion, to bring, as you say, a human side to technology with robotics and AI, and the fact that, you want to bring it to a point where, people get comfortable with that. And as Ty and you mentioned, it's a tool. It's something that we use to try and enhance our lives. Not that it's competing with our lives. We try and make things easier, I think, for ourselves. And this is just one of those tools that'll get us there. So, at the chamber here in Canada, what we're really, really proud today is that we've been able to bridge Slovenia and Canada. That's our goal, is that we try and facilitate communication and knowledge of each other. Slovenia has a lot to offer. We've had Yuri Vega. Very few people realize that this gentleman from Ljubljana under the Austro-Hungarian regime was the founder of algorithms that were using calculators. Everybody here in Hamilton knows of Tesla. Now, he wasn't specifically from Slovenia, but certainly within the region of the Balkans, great innovator, here and impacted the Hamilton, Niagara, North America and the world. So I think there's a lot to be offered here, and Ty certainly has, a place that we can call home here in North America. We'd love to have, more and more companies connect. And of course, Mr. Morgan, I know you and Ty, I'm sure we'll have, much to talk about with Piran. Piran's a beautiful place, Ty. If you ever get a chance to visit Slovenia, it's a good place to start. Although I'm a little more from the other side of Slovenia, Prekmurje, where my parents are from, We've got lots of nice spas and things there as well, but Piran is certainly beautiful on the Adriatic coast. So thank you, everybody. I'm going to zip it, and we look forward to seeing you at many more events that Sonia will, host for us in the coming year. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Ty. Thank you, Maša. Just an amazing presentation from both of you. You've just not only educated, but you've entertained our minds, and we thank you for that. Obviously, AI and robotics is a field that excels in both Slovenia and Canada, all over the world. We hope that this introduction through the Chamber may foster further synergies and result in future collaborative projects. Oops. Canadian-Slovenian Chamber of Commerce invites you to join our network to help support companies to connect between Slovenia, the EU, and Canada. Please consider becoming a member. Thank you again to Ty and Maša. We will share their websites, of course. I'm sure there's more questions from many of you, and you'll be able to ask those questions. Our upcoming Canadian-Slovenian Chamber of Commerce Business Insights event will be April 27th at 1 o'clock. Join us as we present guest speaker Tim Chesnick, financial expert and writer for the Globe and Mail, and he'll be sharing tax secrets and revelations. Again, thank you. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our participants. Thank you for the questions. I hope you'll join us. I hope you will connect with each other where you can, if you can. And I conclude this episode 3. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take care. Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
I should have.